The Zorath's reappearance was more than just a military threat. It was a death sentence for any species they chose to target. Their reputation preceded them, and their brutal efficiency in wiping out entire planets was known throughout the galaxy. Where other species sought peaceful coexistence, the Zorath demanded submission or annihilation. Worlds that resisted were razed to ash. When the Federation's council convened, panic spread like wildfire. The Zorath were not just conquerors, they were predators, and the Federation had long forgotten how to fight true war. Most of the species within the Federation, despite their technological advantages, lacked the tenacity to defeat a foe who fought with the sheer ferocity of a species fighting for survival. The Exurics, a race of warlords, offered to lead the charge, but their methods were far too brutal, and their strategies based on brute force. The Selthari, a highly intellectual race, suggested diplomacy, but their fear of confrontation made their plans laughable in the face of the Zorath's aggression. And so, in the midst of the debates, the unthinkable happened. President Jake Crawford of Earth sent an emergency transmission to the Federation Council. "We will handle this," Crawford's voice came through, calm yet unwavering. The Federation's representatives fell silent, incredulous at first. Earth, a young race, barely reaching the stars in the galactic hierarchy, was offering to lead the charge against the Zorath. It was unheard of. The Federation had more experienced races, more technologically advanced forces. Why would humanity think they could stand a chance? Yet Crawford's words were deliberate. "We'll fight your war, but not your way," he said. "And we'll do it with the one thing you can't beat: human ingenuity." The call was met with disbelief, but desperation won out. They needed to stop the Zorath, and if humanity was offering to fight, they would have to accept. But in the back of their minds, the Federation couldn't shake the thought. Was humanity truly the right choice, or were they simply a last-ditch gamble? The first encounter with the Zorath came sooner than anyone anticipated, and it was nothing short of catastrophic. The Federation's combined fleets, led by the advanced Furaxians and the battle-hardened Velnari, were crushed under the weight of the Zorath's onslaught. Their ships, sleek and powerful, were no match for the sheer ferocity of the Zorath tactics. The insectoid swarm seemed to multiply by the hour, relentlessly overwhelming the Federation's fleets with a combination of brute force and unnerving coordination. The Federation had relied on their superior firepower, but the Zorath didn't play by those rules. Commander Alex McAllister, a former Marine who had become the de facto leader of the human forces, watched the devastation unfold from the bridge of US Barricade, an old Earth warship retrofitted for the war. His fleet had arrived just in time to witness the disaster, but unlike the Federation's well-equipped forces, they had come prepared with a different strategy. Where the Federation had counted on tactics of direct confrontation, humanity relied on its ability to adapt quickly and think outside the box. McAllister's plan was audacious: guerrilla warfare in deep space. He called it the fog of war, using smaller, older ships that could blend into the chaos and strike fast before disappearing into the void. The Zorath might have overwhelming numbers, but they were predictable, driven by a singular hive mind. They lacked the human instinct for unpredictability. The first skirmish between the humans and the Zorath was chaotic, a sudden, lightning-fast attack on one of the Zorath's supply ships. It wasn't about taking down the enemy's flagship. It was about forcing the Zorath to question their every move. The barricade and its fleet attacked swiftly, using the old tactics humans had perfected through centuries of warfare: diversion, feint, and misdirection. The Zorath's predictable responses led them into trap after trap, with the humans always staying one step ahead. The result was stunning. For the first time, the Zorath were forced to retreat, bewildered. McAllister's forces had won their first victory, and the Federation watched in shock. Humanity had just proven that the Zorath's greatest strength, discipline, was also their greatest weakness. The tide was turning, but the battle for the galaxy had only just begun. In the aftermath of their unexpected victory, the human forces began to gain momentum. The Zorath, though still a formidable enemy, were shaken by the unpredictability of humanity's tactics. Their hive mind, once thought infallible, was starting to crack under the strain. The Federation, now fully on board with Earth's leadership, made plans for a more aggressive campaign. However, Commander McAllister had other ideas. "We're fighting the wrong war," he told President Crawford during a secure transmission. "We can't just keep engaging them on the battlefield. We need to hit them where it hurts, their core, their mind. Without the hive, the Zorath are nothing." Crawford was silent for a moment, his brow furrowed. The human strategy had been unconventional, but it was working. Still, taking the fight to the Zorath's homeworld was a different kind of gamble. It wasn't just a military strike, it was an infiltration of their very existence. The plan was simple, at least on paper. A small, elite team would infiltrate the Zorath homeworld, a desolate biomechanical planet called Vithar, and destroy the central hub of their hive mind, the heart of the hive, a massive, living construct at the planet's core. The heart controlled every aspect of the Zorath's military coordination, their strength, and their will to fight. Without it, the Zorath would be crippled, left vulnerable to attack. The team, led by Captain Maya Grant, a tactical genius with a cold, analytical mind, included a diverse crew of humans, ex-soldiers, engineers, intelligence officers, and even former criminals, people who knew how to survive in the shadows. It was a team forged in the fires of Earth's own troubled history, hardened by adversity, and skilled in doing whatever was necessary to survive. "One shot," Grant said during their briefing. "We take out their heart, and we end the war. One shot, or we all die trying." The Federation provided support in the form of orbital strikes and diversionary forces, but the real work would fall on the shoulders of the human team. And as their shuttle descended toward Ethar's atmosphere, the weight of the mission was clear. There would be no turning back. The fate of the galaxy rested on the edge of a knife, and humanity was prepared to face it head-on. The descent into the atmosphere of Ethar was chaotic, the planet's dense, ionized clouds crackling with static. Captain Maya Grant gripped the controls of the shuttle, her knuckles white, as they plummeted through the storm, dodging electromagnetic interference that would have scrambled the systems of lesser ships. The crew was silent, each member focused on the task at hand. Their mission was simple: infiltrate the Zorath's homeworld, locate the heart of the hive, and destroy it. But nothing about this mission felt simple. The shuttle's hull groaned as it made its final approach, slamming down into the biometallic surface of Ethar. The planet's surface was a grotesque patchwork of organic and synthetic matter, a place where living tissue and mechanical structures had fused over millennia. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and decay, a grim reminder that they were standing on the edge of an entire race's soul. Grant immediately gave the order to disembark. "Move out. Stay sharp." The team, 6 of Earth's finest, had been training for this moment for weeks, yet the reality of the situation was far more harrowing than any simulation. The Zorath were everywhere, lurking in the shadows, their insectoid forms darting between the twisted organic spires that dotted the landscape. The Zorath soldiers were relentless and highly territorial, and even the slightest misstep would trigger a deadly response. "Eyes open," muttered Sergeant Jonah Ross, the team's ex-Special Forces sniper, scanning the perimeter. His rifle was slung over his shoulder, but the tension in his body was palpable. They weren't just fighting to kill, they were fighting to survive. The Zorath knew this world better than any human ever could. The team moved swiftly, using the terrain for cover as they approached the heart of the hive, located deep within the planet's core. But as they neared the entrance to the structure, they encountered something unexpected. A massive barrier, a pulsating wall of energy, thrumming with the collective power of the hive mind. "This is it," whispered Dr. Elena Garcia, the team's chief scientist, the heart of their consciousness. The team paused. Their first true obstacle had arrived, and they had no idea how long they could hold out before the Zorath caught their scent. The pulsating energy barrier loomed ahead, an unnatural force that hummed with a low, menacing frequency. Dr. Elena Garcia, the team's scientist and tech expert, crouched by the shimmering wall, her fingers flying over a set of portable tools. "This is definitely Zorath tech," she muttered, squinting at the data flashing across her holographic display. "A defensive mechanism built to protect the heart. If we don't disable it, we won't get through." "How long?" Captain Maya Grant asked, her voice steady, though the pressure was starting to mount. Every second they spent in the open, the more likely they were to be discovered. 5 minutes, maybe less," Garcia replied, sweat beading on her forehead as she worked furiously. "But I'm not sure we can hold them off that long. The Zorath must know we're here. They're probably already mobilizing their forces." McAllister, the former Marine-turned-strategist, scanned their surroundings. The Zorath homeworld was a living nightmare, horrific spires of bone and metal twisted into jagged structures, and everything seemed to pulse with a terrifying alien life force. "We've got to hurry," he said, glancing back toward the horizon where he thought he'd seen movement. "If they come from the west, they'll surround us in minutes." The team's ex-sniper, Sergeant Jonah Ross, took a position on the high ground, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the area. "I've got a line of sight on their patrols," he reported. "They're coming in from the north. They're fast, and they know we're here. We'll have company soon." A distant, eerie shriek echoed through the air, sending a chill through the team. It was the Zorath, alerted, hunting, and ready to destroy anything that threatened their hive. The countdown had begun, and the walls were closing in. Grant gripped her rifle tightly and nodded toward Garcia. "We can't wait any longer. Get us through that barrier now, or we fight our way in." The team braced themselves. They knew they didn't have the luxury of time. Every second counted. The battle for the heart of the Zorath hive was about to begin. With a crack of energy, the barrier shimmered and flickered, and then at last it fell silent. Dr. Garcia let out a breath of relief, her hands shaking slightly from the effort. The humming wall of energy dissipated, revealing a dark metallic tunnel that led deep into the bowls of Vithar. The air felt thicker here, alive with the hum of the hive mind. A strange, unsettling presence that seemed to pulse with every step they took. Grant didn't hesitate. "Move out," she ordered, her voice a razor edge of calm. The team quickly fell into formation, weapons raised, eyes darting around in every direction. The deeper they ventured, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The walls seemed to close in around them, the organic and mechanical structures twisting and merging in ways that defied logic. As they descended deeper into the planet's heart, the team encountered the first real sign of resistance. A platoon of Zorath warriors, swarming toward them from a junction ahead. Their insectoid bodies shimmered in the dim light, razor-sharp claws extended, mandibles clicking in unison. The swarm was like a living tide, crashing toward them with a ferocity that could only come from the collective will of a hive mind. Grant's team opened fire without hesitation. McAllister coordinated their movements, directing fire teams to break off and strike from multiple angles. Ross, perched on a higher platform, picked off Jorath warriors with his sniper rifle, one after another, his steady hand cutting down enemies before they could even reach the ground. But the Jorath kept coming, unfazed by their losses. They were relentless, driven by instinct, and their numbers seemed to multiply by the second. The human soldiers fought with every ounce of their training, but it was clear this wasn't a battle they could win by brute force alone. "We can't hold them off forever," shouted Sergeant Ross, his voice tense as he reloaded. Grant's eyes narrowed. "We don't have to. We just need to buy enough time." At that moment, a guttural roar echoed from the darkness ahead, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The heart of the hive was close. But so too were the Jorath reinforcements. Time was running out. The roar of the Jorath leader sent a shockwave through the team. It wasn't just a sound. It was a signal, a cry that echoed through the hive, rallying every Jorath soldier in the area. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the walls of the tunnel seemed to pulse with the movement of the insectoid swarm. They were closing in, faster than expected. "Fall back," Captain Grant shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The team had pushed forward as far as they could, but now it was clear. They were fighting a losing battle. "We need to get to the heart, now." McAllister didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed Garcia, pulling her toward the front of the team as the others covered their retreat. Ross took position on a higher platform again, picking off the approaching Jorath with deadly precision, but the sheer number of enemies flooding the tunnel made it clear that they wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. The Jorath were relentless, and the sheer volume of warriors flooding the tunnel was starting to overwhelm the humans. As they neared the central chamber, the metallic scent of the hive grew stronger, the air thick with the raw power of the hive mind. The heart of the hive loomed ahead, a massive, grotesque structure that seemed to pulse with a sickening life of its own. It was both organic and mechanical, a twisted fusion of bone, metal, and living tissue, all interconnected by glowing conduits that throbbed like veins carrying the blood of a giant organism. But as they entered the chamber, it wasn't the heart itself that took their attention. It was the Jorath general, a towering creature at least 8 feet tall, covered in armored exoskeletons and surrounded by a dozen elite guards. The general's many eyes locked onto Grant's team, and a guttural voice boomed from its mandibles. "You dare defy the will of the hive?" The general snarled, its voice reverberating through the chamber. "You will die like all the others." Grant didn't hesitate. "Take it down," she ordered. The battle for the heart had begun, and it would be the most vicious yet. But this time, the humans were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting to end the war, once and for all. The explosion reverberated through the heart of Ythar, the planet groaning as its very foundation cracked. The Jorath hive, once a seamless, coordinated network, was now a chaotic mess of severed tendrils, broken conduits, and failing systems. The entire planet seemed to tremble as the hive mind began to disintegrate. For the first time, the Jorath were alone, utterly isolated in their primal, individual instincts. They were no longer a singular force of destruction, but a scattered swarm of terrified creatures, leaderless and confused. Grant's team made their way back toward the shuttle, their every step a battle against exhaustion. They were bloodied, bruised, and shaken, but the victory was undeniable. The Jorath had been stopped. The heart of the hive had been destroyed, and with it, the source of their power. The galaxy was safe for now. As they neared the surface, Grant turned to look back at the shattered landscape of Ythar. The remains of the Zoroth general lay in a heap, its massive body twitching with the last remnants of its hive mind's influence. The planet itself would likely collapse in the coming months, its delicate balance of life and destruction undone. But for Grant and her team, it wasn't just the end of the Zoroth. It was the beginning of something else. They had proven humanity's place in the galaxy, not as a lesser race, but as the most formidable force in the universe. "We did it," Garza said, her voice barely more than a whisper, her eyes locked on the remains of the destroyed hive. McAllister nodded, wiping blood from his face, his expression grim but resolute. "We didn't just fight them. We broke them." As the shuttle ascended into the sky, the team took one last look at the dying world below. The task was far from over. Other threats loomed on the horizon, but the Zoroth were finished. The galaxy now knew the price of underestimating humanity. They had learned the hard way that humans were not to be trifled with. The universe's most fearsome warrior race had risen, and it would not fall easily again. The legacy of Earth's soldiers, bold, unpredictable, and relentless, would echo across the stars for centuries to come.